I recently had the chance to visit Dollywood, the amusement park themed to Dolly Parton in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Keep in mind, Hershey Park is my home park, so I'm pretty used to obscurely themed theme parks. I was able to spend 2 full days at the park, I didn't watch a single show, and I mostly ate park food. I rode every major ride, explored basically every area of the park, and while I didn't go in completely blind, I didn't spend extensive time researching the park beforehand. When it comes to major amusement parks like Disney or Universal, it's pretty impossible to avoid any news on the parks if you're in the theme park space. Heck, every time Disney rethemes a trash can, I feel like there's an army of mouse ear wearing individuals ready to post about it. I remember greatly disappointing my mother-in-law when I told her I knew about the surprise drop track on Hagrid's, even though Hagrid's was in a different continent than the one I lived in when it was being built. Dollywood isn't really like that though. They're definitely a major player in the theme park space. They're practically a destination park, but they aren't really treated like one. Which is why I was pleasantly surprised that this park is secretly really great. I also have to preface this review with the fact that I don't really know if I care about Dolly Parton. I don't listen to country music, I don't watch late night shows, and I don't know if I care about the history of either. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying I don't care. Or at least, I didn't care. So let's start off with Dollywood's strong suits. Firstly, the atmosphere is outstanding. There's a huge emphasis on water and mills and nature throughout the park. Everything is just so nice. There are craftsmen selling their wares throughout parts of the park. There are lots of woodsy areas, and the setting is definitely one of the best settings I've ever seen for a theme park. Dollywood is essentially in a valley in the Smoky Mountains, and it's just awesome. They chose the perfect setting for this park, and while not every part of the park takes advantage of it, a good majority is laid out really well. There's cheery Dolly Parton and Dolly Parton adjacent music playing throughout the whole park, and a good chunk of the employees I ran into were really happy to be there. The trolley drivers who took us back to our parking spot were also married, and that was super cute. There were a lot of older people working at the park, and they were all really happy to work there. Got my stuff stuck in a locker, and while it took a while for the locker attendant to come meet me, he was really cheery and talked me through the whole experience. A park tends to feel really good when there's a big focus on just being content. That gets me to why I now somewhat care about Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton's whole emphasis is love. That's all she wants to leave people with, and sure, you're going to an amusement park where everything is far more expensive than it needs to be. But there's a lot less of a corporate atmosphere here compared to other amusement parks. Also, the Dolly Parton experience is great. It's a genuinely well done museum exhibit within an amusement park. And it's free, which is great. I visited the park during the Flower and Food Festival, and while it's not quite as nice as Epcot's Flower and Garden Festival, it did mean that there were a lot of nicely trimmed bushes around the park. They had a bunch of umbrellas and some nice butterflies made out of shrubbery, and yeah, it looked good. Also, come on, how are you going to beat Epcot's Flower and Garden Festival? It's not even a fair fight. Don't bother comparing them. The various themed areas within the park were pretty nice. I'd say the strongest section of the park is the Old West theme around Mystery Mine and near Tennessee Tornado. I'd say a close second is probably a tie between Wildwood Grove, which is the new kids section of the park, and the area near Lightning Rod. As far as a quasi-destination theme park goes, they did a really great job. There's a large emphasis on nature, and the mills just go crazy. It's really great when there's a good emphasis on a dynamic water element throughout a park. Okay, so let's move beyond all that noise, because at the end of the day, you're going to an amusement park to ride some rides. I'm going to steal something here from one of my favorite YouTubers, Airtime Thrills, and talk about the idea of the 1-2 punch. Amusement parks need to have a good 1-2 punch. They've got to have 2 distinct good rides which target 2 distinct good ideas. Dollywood is particularly focused on roller coasters when it comes to rides, so let's see how they fare on that front. The clear best roller coaster is Lightning Rod. It's probably the RMC with the most controversial history. I remember watching videos around the time when Lightning Rod was built and people talking about how it was such a cool looking ride and it looked absolutely wild, and they just could not wait to ride it when it finally stopped being temporarily closed every single time they visited the park. So in case you didn't know, Lightning Rod used to have a launched lift hill, which was just so unbelievably unreliable. They tried to make it more reliable for a period of time, and then they just kind of gave up and gave it a chain lift. I'd definitely place it in the upper tier of RMCs, but I feel like it was a much bigger deal when it first opened. Firstly, because of the launch lift hill, and secondly, back in the day, not every RMC was this giant multi-inversion beast. This was made before Steel Vengeance, before Twisted Timbers, before Iron Gwazi, before basically everyone's favorite RMCs. If you look at the list of RMCs made before Lightning Rod, there's certainly great rides, particularly Twisted Colossus, but yeah, Lightning Rod's really gonna stand out among that list on the next level. That doesn't mean I don't love Lightning Rod. There are some great elements here. First drop coming off of a pretty significant pre-drop off a hill is awesome. The quad down is also awesome. The setting is possibly one of the best roller coaster settings of all time. It's a little rougher than I'd like, but this was originally a topper track, meaning it was made mostly out of wood, as opposed to the iBox track that RMC is known for, where the supports are wood and the track itself is steel. All in all, great coaster, just not as good as it probably used to be. The second punch and the 1-2 punch is a little less clear. I'd like to say Thunderhead, but it plays a lot of the same notes that Lightning Rod plays. Ejector airtime, twisting layout, wooden coaster. Great ride too. Top tier wooden roller coaster, honestly, but doesn't do quite the variety I'd be looking for. I'd say probably the best contenders for the second punch would either be Wild Eagle or Big Bear Mountain. Wild Eagle is a B&M wind coaster. It's not particularly special, and after riding Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, it's definitely not the best that a wind coaster could be, but it's the first wind coaster to open up in the US, so that's pretty cool. And are we really going to compare Dollywood to Cedar Point? Big Bear Mountain is a family launch coaster, which is actually surprisingly really good. It's got onboard audio, 3 launches, the first of which is actually right out the station, and it probably makes the most sense to be the second punch at the park. The layout is consistently fast, it has good laterals and good floater, and that second launch is honestly really solid. Is it the best family coaster of all time? No, that's clearly Hagrid's. But it's such a good, smooth, long, surprisingly intense ride. Big Bear Mountain is awesome. Going back to the whole I didn't know too much about this park before I visited thing, I knew about Lightning Rod. I knew about Wild Eagle. I knew about Mystery Mine. I didn't know about Big Bear Mountain. I didn't know Big Bear Mountain would be a really good ride, and that's kind of fun. As far as the other rides go, you've got Mystery Mine, a very unique, albeit kinda dumb Gerstlauer Eurofighter. Blazing Fury, another unique, albeit kinda dumb in-house roller coaster. A good drop tower, a decent S&S Scream and Swing, a decent Gerstlauer family coaster, a good but short arrow looper, a decent Vekoma inverted junior coaster, a good enough log flume, and a really solid train ride held back by the fact that the conductor must have a commission on hearing aids or something because they do not stop spamming the horn. That thing is so loud. I'm not even at the age yet where I'm supposed to think things are loud. I'm supposed to like rock and roll and skateboarding. I realize I just kind of breezed by the fact that I think Blazing Fury and Mystery Mine are dumb, so let's get back to that real quick. Let me clarify what I mean by dumb by taking you through these rides. On Mystery Mine, you drop right out of the station and then go up a small vertical lift. You then go down a very small drop into an outdoor section, which is just completely pointless. Then you go into a second mine shaft and go up a much longer vertical lift into an actual good drop. Then you've got Heartline Roll, stall, dive loop sort of thing, and then the ride ends. It's got bulky over-the-shoulder restraints. It's got a really repetitive, goofy theme song. It's all over the place, and I kind of love it. It's not a good ride. It's very entertaining, though. Same deal for Blazing Fury. Right before we dispatched, the ride operator yelled out, "Fire in the hole," and everyone on my train also yelled out, "Fire in the hole," and it was at that point I knew it was going to be one of those rides. Strange restraints, creepy animatronics. I don't even know if they're animatronics. They didn't move, so who knows. Difficult plot to follow, and it has 3 small drops in it. And that's the ride. I knew nothing about the ride going in, and I feel a little more confused afterward. And I thought it was fun. My mother-in-law said it was dumb and a complete waste of time, and that's just the type of energy I personally can't deal with, so naturally I ditched her and rope dropped it the second day we were there. Just kidding, I only rode it once. Fire Chaser Express is a family launch coaster with an awesome setting and a decent ride experience. It just doesn't have that many forces on it, and it tends to gather some really long waits, so I kind of find it hard to care about it. The rides at Dollywood are good. There's a fair amount of variety. There's a good balance between thrilling roller coasters and family rides. They've got 2 water rides. They're definitely lacking on flat rides, but that's really easy to fix. Okay, so what about the food? Well, it's definitely better than your typical amusement park fare. It's blowing the Six Flags parks out of the water any day. And the cinnamon bread that it's so well known for is really good. Dollywood certainly isn't at the level of a Disney park yet, and it's definitely lagging a little bit behind Universal in variety and options, but I personally think that's kind of okay. They serve mostly barbecue, American style, occasionally Tex-Mex, and traditional Southern plates. It tasted good. I will say, one complaint I have about Dollywood is their operations. Some rides, particularly Dragonflower, which is their Vekoma Junior suspended coaster, just had diabolical dispatch times. And yeah, that was somewhat the guest's fault, but they had multiple ride operators in the stations and only one of them was checking restraints. That's a one-train ride, by the way. You better be pumping through those things. Lightning Rod also opened over an hour late on our second day, and it was down for a good chunk of our first day. Tennessee Tornado was also down for a good chunk of our first day, and while I realize that these things are volatile and have over 30 kajillion sensors on them, which trip up all the time, yeah, it would be nice if the crown jewel of the park was at a place where it could operate consistently. Also, another thing about this park that's kind of weird but really isn't too big of a deal, the parking lot is insane. It's an incredibly long, really narrow parking lot. They probably didn't have a great amount of space to work with, but yeah, it's kind of a crazy parking lot. Honestly, I'd comfortably place this park in the A tier of parks. It's got great atmosphere, it outranks similar parks in food, it outranks similar parks in theming, and the rides are really solid. There's a lot of really cool random stuff to do here, like watching someone glass blowing, or dipping candles, or walking through the Dolly Parton exhibit, or eating a whole loaf of cinnamon bread. Whatever you're into, you've got a good chance of finding something you like here. If I could change something about the park, particularly with the ride lineup, I'd say it would be nice if they added a hyper, and throw in some flat rides and a good dark ride. They've got the inversion machines, they've got the ejector machines, but a terrain-based hyper that would wrap around certain areas of the park would be really cool. The flat rides could be a very easy addition that would take away capacity from other areas of the park and would add to the dynamic skyline. They're kind of already building a dark ride with Night Flight Expedition, but I could totally see some sort of shooting dark ride or other style of dark ride fitting in at this park. Maybe like a Wild West style shooting ride or a firefighting shooting ride or something like that. There's a lot of potential there. Either way, this park is great. If you get the chance to visit, do it. It's really well done, it's polished, and while it's certainly not perfect, it's certainly worth your time.